What is going on, guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be covering one of the weirdest but shockingly effective decks. Hopefully you guys do enjoy the video. Definitely let me know in the comments if you guys give this a try and if you guys have been crushing your trophies. The full deck list is the Rune Giant, the Electro Giant, the Inferno Dragon, the Knight, Rascals, Little Prince, Heal Spirit, and the Log. So this is the full deck, and for evolutions we are using the Inferno Dragon Evo and also the Knight Evo. This is a really strong combination that will really help you start climbing in trophies, especially if you're a mid-ladder player. This will definitely help you get up there and really start helping you climb up these trophies, which is the biggest goal for a lot of players. It is also a very fun beatdown deck. So let's break down how the deck works. So basically this deck revolves around two main ideas: control the map with your evolved units and also build unstoppable counter pushes. This is all very important. So your Evo Knight is insanely tanky and it's very strong in the 1v1 duels, and it can easily distract some of the strongest units in the game. So no matter what, you're always going to be getting a lot of value with the Knight, and it's one of the best cards in the game. It always really has been. It isn't the most broken card, and it really has never been broken. It's just been a very stable card throughout its whole lifetime, and I really appreciate the card. It was one of the first cards I ever really enjoyed in Clash Royale, and it's also the first card you actually get in the game, which is really awesome to see. Then we have the Evo Inferno Dragon, which shreds tanks and really destroys big pushes, especially if he's able to start laying into those tanks and they don't have a lot to stop the Inferno Dragon. He can just start shredding towers. Very strong unit. And then we have the Rascals, which is one of the strongest defensive anchors in the game. Rascals by far is one of my favorite units to use nowadays. It is such a strong unit, and for the value you are getting a lot. You're getting that beef tanky Rascals boy, and you're also getting the archers. The unfortunate part is that the archers are very squishy, so they do get taken down by arrows, a lot of other spells, but it does force your opponent to use those spells. There is a little bit of that, and if they don't have that and they don't have a real good way to get rid of the archers, you can easily counter really big pushes. You can take care of the P.E.K.K.A. You can take care of a lot of really big tanks, especially Mega Knight. You can counter the Mega Knight very easily, all for 5 Elixir. Also, once you defend, you choose your win condition. You have your Rune Giant, which will give you chip and pressure. Your Electro Giant is going to make you start up that really big push. You have your Little Prince for lane poke and range support. It's very flexible, and that's why it works in this deck. The Little Prince provides a lot of utility. If he's able to sit there and tank, he's going to be doing a lot of damage, and even so, if you need that extra tank, you could always use his ability, summon the extra Guardian Knight, and then get that dash going, which is very important. If you are going to use that ability, make sure the dash is going to get value, otherwise it's not as strong. You do get that nice little beefy tank, which can help in some sticky situations. However, you need to make sure you are getting that value because of the dash does quite a bit of damage. Let's start breaking down the utility of each card. So we have the Rune Giant, which will provide that bridge poke, and it is that extra win condition. When your opponent spends too much elixir on one lane, the Rune Giant is a really strong starter. If you guys can see in the gameplays, I usually start off the pushes with the Rune Giant. It's a very soft commit into the push. If they have a building, it's going to be a lot easier for you to tell, and it's going to be off cycle for them when you spawn your Electro Giant, which is very good because a lot of big buildings do counter the Electro Giant very heavily. That unit doesn't have a very free path into laying into the tower, gets distracted very easily, and then you're not getting a whole lot of value. So make sure you're using a Rune Giant first. Also going to buff your Electro Giant, and it's going to buff all the units behind it, dealing more right click damage. Giving that bonus damage is very important, and the Rune Giant is a very quintessential part of this deck. And even for defensive pushes, sometimes you might be running into a lot of problems and they might have a heavy push. You can easily just spawn the Rune Giant and soak up all that pressure for 4 Elixir. Very strong units. Highly recommend you guys to give this unit a try, especially if you have some good levels on it. If it's under leveled, it doesn't feel as strong. You need to make sure you have some decent levels in the Rune Giant, and you will be getting a lot of value. As for the Electro Giant, it is the punish engine. It is the strong part of this deck. It is your main tank and really biggest damage dealer when it comes to it. It is very tough to deal with. If a deck is not good at dealing with the Electro Giant, you're going to be getting 3 crowns, no problem, no questions asked. And even for offensive and defensive purposes, you can use this unit because he has that zap around him. You're able to take care of some really tough spawner decks sometimes, and you're able to just throw them defensively, and they're just going to be soaking up all that damage, and it is a pretty strong defensive unit. For the most part, if you are in a desperate moment, you definitely could do that. Something like the Inferno Dragon Evo, again, melts tanks. Don't have to explain that much about it. It is a pretty strong Evo if you have the right support for it. If you have a lot lot of things in front of it that are going to soak up all the pressure and the attention, it will do a lot of work. If you're just using the Inferno Dragon by itself, it doesn't really get a lot of value. It does get countered pretty easily, so make sure it is a part of your push. Let's break down some of your easy matchups and some of your hard matchups. So easy matchups for you is Giant, Golem, Beatdown decks. These decks you do very well up against because you have your Inferno Dragon and you can easily counter this. Hog Rider decks you do very well up against as well because you have your Rascals. It can easily take care of the Hog Rider, no problem. Very easy for you to deal with these decks. And also bridge spam, you're able to counter them very easily thanks to your Rune Giant. It does a lot of work. This deck is built to take on these decks. However, some of these new iterations of bridge spam, when they're playing with the Witch from the back, a lot of people are starting to use the Wizard. Even though the Wizard is not that great of a unit in my opinion, I do think the Witch with combinations like the Knight do very well. So you need to make sure you are starting your push properly and make sure that the Rune Giant is there to soak up that interaction, so your Electro Giant is just there in the back. Also guys, don't underestimate the power of the Heal Spirit. I see so many players misusing the Heal Spirit. It is such a strong unit. You know they're going to drop a Mega Knight on you. You know they're going to drop something big on your big push. Make sure you have that Heal Spirit. The amount of times the Heal Spirit has saved games for me, especially when I'm going for a really big push and I'm getting close to tower, that little extra bit of HP can be the difference maker. Also in some matchups where you might get out leveled by another card and easily drop that Heal Spirit, get that extra value and make that unit live for a little bit longer, giving you that extra value. And maybe your opponent has to commit an extra spell to make sure you don't get any tower damage. So make sure you guys are using that Heal Spirit. One Elixir, very strong unit. Some of the even matchups for this deck is control decks, spell cycle decks, and balloon decks. You need to make sure you are countering these properly because Lumberloon is still a pretty strong deck if played correctly, and it does very well up against this deck because we don't have that much aerial power. If you have your Rascals in cycle, you can take care of that push very easily. However, if your Rascals are not in cycle, the Inferno Dragon takes quite a bit of time to ramp up to take care of the balloon. The Knight can take care of the Lumberjack, but it's also very cumbersome and kind of slow, so you need to make sure those Rascals are there. And if you have a bad starting hand against that kind of deck, you might be suffering a little bit, but you can always counterplay them afterwards and pick up those towers as your deck ramps up in double elixir and potentially triple elixir. And then some of the hard matchups are buildings, heavy DPS like Cannon, Inferno Tower, and Musketeer. Very hard matchups. Split lane pressure is very difficult for this deck to deal with as you like to commit full on to one lane. You can do a little bit of split push here and there, but for the most part you want to be starting out with a really big push and just go for the unstoppable push. That is basically the way you like to play beatdown decks, and you can be punished because if your Electro Giant is getting destroyed very quickly or your Rune Giant isn't able to really get a whole lot of value and just getting destroyed by an Inferno Tower or just by 3 Musketeers in the back, which is a very popular deck, you can start to run into some issues. So you need to play accordingly and catch them off cycle. That is really the best thing I can say against those decks, is play around the cycles and make sure you guys know what they might have up and what they might have available to counter you, and make sure you are doing the opposite so you don't get countered and you're able to get some value, because sometimes the Electro Giant is just getting absolutely shredded. They have so many units in the back line and you're just not able to deal with it. But yeah guys, hopefully you guys enjoy the deck. I would like to see your comments below on your opinion on this deck. See you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.